Happy Moldy Monday. This is the first in an ongoing series of weekly posts I will be doing on Mondays, trying to keep it between 5 to 10 minutes about mold education, both for your home and your body. And today I am going to talk about how confusing mold toxicity symptoms can be. And in order to do that, I want to compare it to COVID and how different people in the same household can experience symptoms that are vastly different. Even one person testing positive and not noticing any symptoms, and another person being so sick they're on a respirator and God forbid die. Same household. Very similar to mold toxicity. We often statistically see male partners who don't exhibit symptoms as readily as their female partners. That is not a hard, fast rule at all. I have seen the opposite, absolutely. But statistically speaking, women tend to be hit harder. Some of that could be hormones. Some of that could be that also statistically women tend to be home more than men in a stereotypical kind of scenario. I am kind of referring to heterosexual relationships more. Why are some people hit harder than others? There is a 25 to 30% portion of the population that is genetically predisposed to not be able to detox things like mycotoxins as readily as others. This does not mean that the rest of the population is not impacted by mold toxicity. It just means that the 25 to 30% of the population gets hit harder and faster. They are the canaries in the coal mine, and everyone should pay attention. There is a thought that there are silent symptoms that people experience sometimes. I don't know whether these folks are just not noticing symptoms and then do, or if the symptoms truly are silent and then the thought is then something bigger happens, like cancer, stroke, seizure, but not sure. I have dealt with this situation like this where years ago the female partner was bedridden and had been for years and cut. My cat's going crazy. Inside and out, coated with mold. Male partner not noticing really anything but wanting to help her. And then later, male partner developed a brain tumor. So also, more minor scenarios might be somebody might be bedridden or might be dealing with symptoms that look like fibromyalgia, Parkinson's, even Alzheimer's. And another person in that same household might be dealing with, I don't know why I always talk about toenail fungus, but it's a common symptom of mold toxicity. So maybe something that seems minor, or maybe their anxiety and depression is kind of heightened, but there's so much that we readily attribute to just stress or age. And I'm not saying those things aren't at play, but I am definitely saying that mold toxicity will exacerbate things and add to stress and age issues. If not, sometimes mimic symptoms. And I truly thought I was going through menopause when I was first sick, because the night sweats were so bad that I would take my pajamas off, sometimes 3 times a night, and drop them on the wood floor. Now I would never do that because now I know too much about moisture in wood, but I would drop them on the wood floor and you could hear them splat. And bedding and everything, sometimes I would have to change everything like 3 times a night, and went to my naturopath before looking into anything, saying, I think we need to look at my hormones. And thank God she just kept saying we need to do more testing. We would find results. Thank God, again, because oftentimes people do not get clear results on their testing. Sometimes because their organs are so bound up holding on to mycotoxins that it's not in their bloodstream. So when they get tested, it's not coming out in the urine test. So there's a whole procedure around that. The other thing that is important to think about is trauma. Folks that have already come in with a highly dysregulated nervous system tend to be more likely to get more sick. That said, for anyone, no matter what level of trauma a person has, nervous system regulation is definitely a big part of healing from mold toxicity. What I've been seeing lately is it seems like some people in the mold community are pushing maybe a little bit more for the body healing, and others are pushing more for like just nervous system regulation. But I'm in the camp of both. It's definitely both. You have to do both. Nervous system regulation and tend to your body, detoxing and nourishing with a knowledgeable practitioner, because it is so different for everybody, because every system in the body is hit by mold toxicity, especially because the mitochondria in every cell is compromised, which is a large part of why fatigue is usually on board. Because of such disparity in how different people experience mold symptoms, with the confusing scenario of folks being in the same workplace or home that is impacted by mold and having vastly different symptoms. Because of that, gaslighting is so common, and unfortunately also very common in the medical community, because the medical community is still catching up to mold toxicity. So finding I was going to say naturopath, but it is good to find. It's probably more likely to find a doctor who's going to hear you and be knowledgeable about mold toxicity if you go the alternative route. Even beyond a naturopath, I would say functional medicine doctor. And that is all I'm going to say about that. I just think, bottom line is we all need to be paying attention to mold, and it is a very challenging situation to be in, where our whole system is built with these buildings and houses with not necessarily faulty building science, but some things aren't thought through, especially our materials, how they're stored, how they're brought onto the property, when they're brought onto the property, and how they're tended while they're built. Huge, massive. Also the adhesives and all sorts of, that we could go on. There's lots to talk about, but that is what I wanted to address today. I hope that helps. I hope you're healthy in health.